Peter Allen, Honduras, 1966 to 1968. But there was one, I worked for the Ministry of Education, the Department of School Construction, designing schools for the rural area. And I often had side jobs. There was a community outside of the capital, Tegucigalpa, where I lived, and they wanted some help building a school. And the government didn't have enough money to fund them for that year. So they invited me to come out and talk to them about the possibilities. And they showed me the site where they wanted to put the school. And I'll use the Honduran flag. The slope of the land was about like that. And I said, well, first of all, I think we have to kind of build a retaining wall and level it off so we have a place to build a school that wouldn't slide down the hill. And they said, okay, we'll call you when we're done. And by God, in a month, I came back and they had built a dry stack rock wall, retaining wall, about 20 feet high, and they had a level place to build a school. And that was just so wonderful. Anyway.
I'm Carol LaFaver. I served in Honduras from 66 to 68, and even though I was part of a fisheries project, I actually was involved in training teachers in the rural areas.
It's Barbara Kari, Kaare-Lopez. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Honduras. I was in 3 different towns, Olanchito, Tocoa, in Trujillo, and I was a nurse, and I still am a nurse, and I was with the Ministry of Health, doing all kinds of things, 1978 to 80.
Lauren Hintz, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. My story in Honduras is that I worked at a high school, mostly doing teacher training, but my counterpart resigned, so I ended up teaching classes. And the high school kids had to do a service learning project, and I ended up being their advisor and helping them. So every evening we went to an area of town which had no electricity. It was owned by the Cattlemen's Association, and what we did is we went there and taught everyone to read. So here I was a Peace Corps volunteer in my 20s, didn't know much Spanish, but I was helping teach people to read. Went back several years later and visited some of the families that I taught to read, and they said, Don Lauren, when you first came, we couldn't understand a word that you said, but now you speak Spanish pretty well. So although I taught them to read, I didn't really learn that much Spanish at the time.
My name is Leo Alonso, is that good? And I was in the Peace Corps from 1981 to 1983 in Honduras, Central America. I was in the Rural Development Project, and I was in a small village of about 1,000 people named San Jose de las Palmas. I became close friends with many of the villagers. Spanish is... I'm Cuban of origin, so I speak Spanish fluently. So I was able to just get into the culture very quickly, and I made a lot of friends with the locals, especially the leaders. And I'm sure if I went back, I would be well remembered. They wanted me to marry their daughters, I remember. Yeah, they would call me Dong, which is a phrase you only use for an elder out of respect. And here I was, 21 years old, and they're calling me Dong Leo. I still remember that. It was very flattering.
Judith Howard Whitney, which was my name then, and Terry. I served in Honduras in 1987 and 1988. I was a business volunteer starting the business program up in Honduras, so I was in the capital city of Tegucigalpa most of the time, although I went all around the country working. I guess one of the things that I do remember is I had a request to go out to the island of Roatan, work with a woman who had a shop out there. And so I flew out, and the plane had basically no innards. It just had boxes that you sat on. It was sort of like an old Air Force plane, and I kept thinking, why am I doing this? It was very nerve-wracking, but it got in and it landed, and it was just fine. And of course, the Toncontín Airport in Honduras is a very scary airport because it just drops off the end. So if they don't stop in time, you poof over the cliff.
My name is Troy Rudder, and I was in Honduras from 1988 to 1990, and I lived in a little village, La Paera, Lempira, Honduras.
My name is Dana Messenger, and I was a volunteer from 1990 to 1993 in Honduras and Uruguay. From 90 to 92 in Uruguay, I was a small business development volunteer, and I ended up working with Junior Achievement. If any of you are familiar with Junior Achievement, it's a business program for high school kids. And what we did is we translated the English manual into Spanish and went about the country and promoted the program through the high schools on the north coast of Honduras. And one of the interesting things, one of the successes that we had was a group of high school students who, during Semana Santa, when everybody goes to the beach, they decided that they were going to make and sell suntan oil on the beach and walk up and down the beach selling suntan oil. And these kids found the supplier for the coconut oil, found the chemist for the sunblock, found the plastic bottle, found the guy that made the label for the plastic bottle, and they walked up and down the beaches during the whole week of Semana Santa and ended up making several $100s, which at the time was an enormous amount of money, and it was a great success and was used throughout the program to promote the Junior Achievement.
Hi, I'm Sue Owen. I was a volunteer in Honduras from 1990 to 93. I was assigned to the village of El Barrio, and that was outside of La Paera, Lempira.
My name is Andrew Motuela. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Honduras from 1996 to 1998 in the state of Olancho. It was in the town of Jano near Juticalpa. But you mentioned bus rides and riding on top of we didn't have a bus, but we had a truck called a Baronesa that was the only thing that could make it to the village, and riding on the roof of the bus, on the truck, and that's where all the cargo was, but that was actually the best seat in the house because the other ones down below were tightly packed and you'd get car sick because you couldn't really see out through the stuff, so you go up on the top. And it's just the best memories of sitting up there with the other muchachos, and all the young guys would be up there and, you know, watching life go by. And then I tried to, and over time got a few kids interested in bird watching, because you see some amazing birds riding on the roof of that truck, and you see the road runners coming by and hearing the woodpeckers, and getting kids excited about bird watching and the nature that they had around them, and then explaining that was really special. And for someone from North America, we don't have a lot of those species, so that was a good memory that I have at that time.
My name is Susan Stolpe. I was a volunteer in Honduras from 1999 to 2002. I served in Yuscarán in the Department of El Paraíso, as well as in Tegucigalpa, and I was an environmental education volunteer.
So my name is Luke Bowman, and I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Honduras from 04 to 06, and I worked in the Talgua Caves in Caracama, Solancho. I guess one of the most memorable instances was looking at some of the burial sites in the Talgua Caves and finding burial sites for pre-Mayan or pre-Columbian groups that lived there around 4,000 years ago, and going in and seeing the remains from those burial sites and skeletons with my counterpart.
Maureen O'Neill, stationed in San Jose de Comayagua in Honduras from 2007 to 2009.
Jenna, I am currently a volunteer in Honduras 2010 to 2012. And
my name is Brian. I'm an RPCV from Honduras 2009 to 2011.
And the story that we have decided to tell is he had a friend in town that had horses, and we wanted to go horseback riding. So
I lived in a town called Santa Rosa, and she lived 20 minutes away.
And there's a trail that goes between it, so we wanted to ride horses between there. So he found a guy who had horses, and he told us
he thought he had horses.
He thought he had horses. So he told us to get there at 9. We showed up on time, and around 10:30 he rounded up 2 horses from the town for us to ride, which were the smallest horses I've ever seen in my life. I thought I was gonna break it, but so finally we got on the horses, we took a picture, and maybe 40 seconds later this kid comes up to us and goes, "Look, so the owner of the horses' dad is in the health center, so he's gonna need the horse to go visit his dad." And so our horseback ride lasted about 40 seconds, but it was funny.
The best part is that when Don Nicholas was his name, when we came back and said, "Oh, they need to take away the horse. They need to take the horses to take somebody to the hospital," he said, "Oh, that's a good thing because those horses are too small. They would have never made it to where you guys wanted to go."
But they never mentioned anything to us about that before, so it was pretty
Well,
hilarious.
the cool part was after we sat down, they invited us to lunch, and it was kind of in the backwoods area, and they invited us to lunch and served us food.
And we went on a hike to a waterfall, so it ended up being
It's
an exercise in patience, like every day in Peace Corps. So
yeah, it's great.
My name is Leticia Davila. I was serving as a Peace Corps health advisor in Honduras, and the town or village I was in was called Taulabé. It was in the Department of Comayagua, and I was serving between 2011 and 2012. Actually, we had chickens in our backyard, and so there was a time where the family was all going to gather, and the sons, they called them the gemelos because, you know, the twins, and they're like, "Oh, the gemelos are coming, so we're going to have this big feast." We're like, "Okay." So I was invited, and they wanted to have chicken, so they got a chicken from their backyard. So I was like, "Well, which chicken are we going to eat, you know?" And they're like, "Oh, this one." I'm like, "Okay." So during that weekend, it was on a Saturday, my host dad, he just yells, you know, from downstairs. He would call out my name, and he's like, "Leticia!" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, come down. It's time to kill the chicken." He's like, "Bring your camera." And I had never experienced anything like that in my whole entire life. So I come down with my camera, and he's like, "You can take pictures and video," because I had already previously showed him my camera. And so when I get out there, the 2 girls, Norma and Olga, were already out there. And so my host dad is out in the backyard with a big stick, and you can just see like him with these eyes of death coming at this chicken with this stick. And the 2 girls are trying to corral it to go in the corner. So finally they get the chicken, and he ties it. He ties the legs of the chicken, and then he puts it on a board, and with one big whack of his machete, he decapitates the chicken. And I was, you know, in awe. I had never seen anything like that before. So it was, you know, it was kind of neat to see where your chicken came from. You know, here in the States, we just go to the grocery store and get the chicken in the plastic, and we cook it and eat it. But I saw the whole process from decapitating the chicken all the way up to later we had chicken soup for dinner. So yeah, that was definitely an eye-opening experience.